Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to Fishing for Men. This is Spencer, and I hope that you all really enjoyed. If you're tuning in right after Billy's testimony, I hope you enjoyed hearing his story and the courage to share just how God's moving in his life. We are starting a new series, and it's a topic that isn't foreign to this podcast, but it's definitely one that we haven't gone into depth the way that we want to. And it's titled, Till Death Do Us Part. And if you've said those vows before, you'll know that we're talking about marriage. So over the next 4 episodes, we're going to take some time to dive into this topic of marriage. And before I tell you a little bit about what this series is going to look like, I'm going to allow my co-host today, because we got some real special guests today. So here's what I'd love. Introduce yourself and how long you have been married, because I think everybody in this circle has been married. So I'll start. Spencer, been married for just over 3 years now.
It's Brandon here, and I'm just about to hit 20 years next month.
Hey, and Cody's here, and we're going on 22.
Mike here. I'm the old man. We'll be 25 next February.
Woo woo! Heck yeah. Cole here. It was just 15 years in July.
Hey, y'all, it's Billy. We're coming up on 11.
All right. So if you're keeping track out there, I think that's over 65 years of marital wisdom we've got sitting around this table.
I don't know about the wisdom part. We'll tell you all the things not to do.
Stay tuned for our
wisdom.
book. Yeah. But we're going to spend some time this first episode just really getting into what does it mean? You know, is to be married, is that a covenant? Or is it a contract? And what's the difference? And we'll talk a little bit about what that's about. And then we'll go into what you're talking about, which is all about communication, which is arguably everybody's favorite thing to talk about and probably where most men we see make the most mistakes in that communication. Then we'll talk a little bit about intimacy, everybody's favorite subject. Everybody's got a different definition of what it looks like. And we'll talk about a new definition grounded in biblical scripture. And then we'll talk about servanthood. What does it mean to lead your family from the back instead of from the front?
Are we sure we're not going to do all these tonight? Because I'm ready.
yeah. I'll tell you what, it's just a marathon. We're just going to cut it up. We'll just cut the episode. But before we jump in, you know, I feel like there's really 3 verses that I found that really ground this entire series that we'll be touching on. The first comes from, as Tim Mackey would say, the scroll of Genesis 2, verse 24, which says, "A man shall leave his father and mother and be united to his wife." The other comes from Malachi chapter 2, verses 14 through 16, which says, "The Lord is the witness between you and the wife of your youth." And then we end with Ephesians 5:25, which says, "Christ in the church as the model," and it talks about, it's 25 through 33, which talks about Christ in the church as the model for husbands and wives. So we won't read all of that, but feel free if you've got time to
Well, I
go
like
check
that
that
one,
out.
though. We have to really dig in there.
Well, you said you had that memorized, right? Didn't you?
No, definitely don't have it memorized. There's pieces that I distinctly remember that I'm like, whew, that one hurts.
So let's start with just roundtable, this conversation, because I really want this to be conversational. When you all hear that phrase, "till death do us part," what does that mean to you?
Quite literal.
Literal?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're joined till death do
we
us part.
die. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
What else comes up?
You're one.
You're one? You're together, like joint one, or like you're
Mhm.
one person? Okay. What else?
I was going to say I'm aligned with Cole in, basically it's not an option.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was thinking through this today as I was reading that question. I also don't want to come off insensitive because I actually think there are certain scenarios where you shouldn't be together. Like, there are very unhealthy situations where people need to get out of that relationship because of abuse
that's a good call
that's going on. And so I do want to make sure that we call that out because it can come off insensitive to where it's like, hey, you have to stay in that. Well, we got to be very careful because there are some really dangerous situations in those. Yeah. Some of people that I know personally that's happened to.
Yeah.
So death could mean death to the relationship as well, not just death as a human.
Yes. But we have to be careful not to take that too far, which is where I think we've taken a little bit of liberty in this today.
What do you mean?
I think people give up on their marriage and call it dead before it's actually dead.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
Yeah, I can see that.
You're right.
Just because they don't want to put the effort in.
Which kind of goes into, so second question was, how do you think the world is interpreting that? I think that's a good point. So what I hear you saying is some people have interpreted it more as it's a guideline. It's not
Yeah,
necessarily
it's a suggestion.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's an ideal, not necessarily a true mandate that we're meant to live out.
Yeah, I think I agree with Cole that it's in general,
Yep.
a literal thing.
Sure.
Like literally until death do you part. But to like pull that back and stop and sit in it and think about the commitment you're making, so that it doesn't become that flippant, like, oh, I feel in love right now. It's fun, and then what about when it gets hard?
I don't think that's the expectation, even though the words come out most of the time. I
Yeah.
don't think that is the expectation.
Like, do you stop and really?
There's I always got an out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and even if you're not thinking about the out in the back of your mind, depending on what age you get married at, it could just be you don't have the brain capacity to think it through.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like what you said, Brandon, about it being a commitment, but I think that commitment is also like a call to responsibility, which is that I think sometimes we forget is that when you said that statement, it meant that you are going to put a little bit more skin in the game, and you're not going to stay in fight or flight mode. There's a different way that you now look at that relationship, right?
Yeah, we talked about this because I think, Mike, you sent something from Leviticus a long time ago, and it was like something about like
It didn't come from you, Billy?
no, it didn't.
Oh, okay.
We were talking about it was kind of along these lines, but I think there was a very strict punishment. Like, pretty sure your man parts got cut off if you try to divorce your wife, and I have to go find it.
Yeah.
Do you remember that conversation?
There is
What?
something in
Yeah.
Leviticus.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, like that. There was like that is the expectation. If you
I'll have to look
if
at
you if you try to leave your wife and you do, like, it just gets, you don't need it anymore.
Yeesh.
And so, in a way, obviously, like it doesn't need to happen, but there isn't much of a literal in necessarily, I don't know if I can find the right word, but like punishment for getting divorced. There absolutely is, because there's destruction that happens across the family.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I think it would cause some guys to think twice. If,
Yeah.
Oh,
that-
yeah.
The physical, like that true tangible.
not
Literal
even-
skin in the game.
literally.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't even be like, it would cause you to think twice, I think, before you even got married.
Yeah.
And I think there's times where we don't always think that through as men all the time. It's like, ooh, she's good looking, I want her to be my wife.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it stops.
Well, I mean, it might start off that way.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily bad.
No, we're supposed to.
Yeah, yeah. But how does it develop from there? And
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
spot are you at?
And
Your maturity level.
there's an expectation, like, I think of till death do us part. Over the course of that, there's many years, and there's going to be growth that happens.
Mhm.
There's going to be change that happens for both parties.
Mhm.
And this is something that me and my wife have really talked about. It's like, we're going to grow together. And I see so many times where it's like, I am just who I am, or I'm going to grow, or I don't want to be with that person because they don't want to grow. Well, the reality is you are growing one way or another. And so I think about that, like, growing together all the way into the end
Yeah.
that you have together. So
Have you thought about, because Spencer asked a question about what does till death do us part means, and Billy talked about growth, right? Have you ever thought about, like, marriage is a way for us to grow, to be together till death do us part?
absolutely. Well, that's the Ephesians 5:25 through 33 verse.
Yeah, Ephesians is a great book for marriage. Literally, it just, for me, it means I have to die to myself, right? Because
Yeah.
it's not me anymore. It's us.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
word I don't exist very often anymore. It's more of us and ours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You are no longer me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we're just gonna whip out that verse now. So
Yeah,
Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, aka he died for her.
Yeah.
that, I mean, we could even just stop there and be like,
That'll be a huge.
is
thing
that your
for-
mentality with your wife, that you're going to love her enough to lay down your life?
Yeah.
Which means you don't get, I mean, you get a say, but like you're supposed to lay down everything for her. But then the next part says to make her holy. Like, ooh. Like,
Yeah.
Point out her gifts, abilities, skills, help her to be set apart in the way that God has called her.
Yeah.
Oh, that one stings too.
Yep.
Really,
How well am I doing that each day?
I gotta pause you real quick. That really makes me think about like friend groups prior to this group. Is I was always responding to things. Yes, I like, hey, you want to go hang out and have a few beers and watch a football game? I'd be like, yes. But then I'd come back and be like, actually, we're doing this. And then I would get crap for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's plenty of guys out there that are like that type that answer for themselves instead of answering for us. Like Mike said.
Yeah. When do
Or we make a joke about it. I got to check with the boss.
Yeah.
That's not exactly the best way
not
to
really managing them up.
Yeah.
Right. I think that was one of the things I learned early on is I had to be really mindful about how I talked about Katie, my wife, to family, because I didn't want to put her in a hole before, or dig a hole that she had to then try and get herself out of with my words.
Yep.
So
I was very guilty of that
yeah,
early on in our marriage. And I think in the last couple of years, especially being in this group, I've gotten better at, well, let me check with my wife.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to make the decision together kind of thing.
So coming back to this big statement that hopefully every one of us made when we were saying our vows is that what I'm hearing is that there's two senses. There's the very literal sense, which is this commitment of giving my physical life to you in connection with you until my physical life ends. But it's also this concept of reshaping my sense of identity, as Mike, you kind of pointed out, this dying to self. And it's also this call to commitment, Brandon, and action. So there's just a lot that you would think in that phrase. And then you think about right after it, for better or worse, which we could go into forever, but we're on and on. But I think it's really interesting because as Christians, we believe that that's a covenant that we are making with our partner and with God when we say those words. And yet that's not always the way the world views it. They sometimes view it as more of that's a legal obligating contract that you have entered into.
Don't put me in that box.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so I found this quote from Gary Thomas in his book, Sacred Marriage. And I just felt like it was appropriate for episode 1 of Foundation. And he says, if your marriage doesn't make you more like Jesus, you're missing the point. God designed marriage not for comfort, but for transformation.
How many of us went into marriage with that mindset?
Yeah. How many of you chose somebody because, you hear that all the time, like, I just love her because I can be myself around her. And that, like, I can be authentic. I don't have to try and be somebody else. But this is like saying, actually, that should have been your goal all along, to find somebody that pushes you and transforms you. And that's part of this covenant that you were making. This covenant was to not just be with this person, but to transform for and with this person. And that's kind of a wild concept to think of.
Yeah. But I think, on what you said, I agree. You don't want to say like, oh, I'm comfortable, I can be myself, to be lazy. But I do think that's a healthy starting point, in the sense that it means you can trust them, because I don't think the transformation can happen if you're having to pretend to be someone you're not to your spouse.
So where's the line between a trusting level of comfort and a stagnant level of comfort?
Well,
that's more rhetorical.
Yeah, no, I get it. I guess it's what you do with it from there. If the end goal is just to, I guess that is a hard line to define, but is the trust so that you can let down your guard and show yourself both your strengths and weaknesses? Or is it an excuse to not be responsible or not grow or whatever it may be?
Yeah.
I think for me, that line is when you really are mature in your walk with Christ, to where you see that it's not just me being comfortable with my wife, but also the calling of what God calls us to do, to lead a husband. And, you have to do, you have to serve, right? And when you serve with no motive, no intention to
Mhm.
get something back. And I think that's when you can be yourself, but at the same time, you're also trying to serve your wife and grow, and that helps to transform who you are. You go from this, maybe I am selfish to, well, if I serve my wife, I have to die of that part of my selfishness so I can serve her. And that's transforming, me from that selfishness to the servant heart with no, motivation or no agenda behind it. That's how I see how that
Yeah.
plays out.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely right. I'm trying to think about if I were listening to this podcast, like I like that idea, but how do I actually do that like day to day, real life? Like I'll think of an example that happened last night. When I'm in bed, ready to go to sleep, and my wife's like, "Oh, my lower back is killing me," and it's like a hint. I know that she wants me to like get up, but that's a way to serve her, right? And I mean, that's just one small example, but I think a
Was your
lot of
thought,
the,
yippee, I get to massage your back.
like here, no, I'm gonna like physically get up, right,
Yeah.
and take care of her because I know she's in pain. But what does it look like to serve on a day-to-day basis in like those small ways instead of something big, which I think is what you're probably getting at, right? It's big and small, but
Yeah, it's big and small, and really, it's that little things that will change you over time,
Mhm.
right? Like I used to, my before Christ nature is very selfish. Like if I'm doing this for you, what am I getting back from you? So there was one time I remember. This was probably, let me think. We probably were married, by maybe the second year,
okay, so early on.
early on.
Was this pre-Christ, Mike?
Oh
or-
yeah,
okay.
yeah, of course. So her parents came to visit, and we're like, okay, let's plan a trip, and all that. So we took her car in to get oil change, and of course, the technician there was like, hey, you also need 4 new tires.
And this and this and this.
Yeah, exactly. And so we were like, yeah, okay. I didn't consult her. I was like, okay, let's just do it. And then we got home. We're talking about, hey, what did you spend? Back then, this was 20 years ago. It's like, what did you spend $500 on tires for?
Oh, that would be sweet.
Yeah, I know. Now today, yeah.
It's like one
so,
tire.
So it went from just having a conversation into me getting rage and yelling at her. It's like, well, I spent all this money because we're going to take your parents on a trip. And I want to make sure that they're safe. And it's like, man, it just went on and on and on. And now that I look back, I was like, oh my gosh, that was so dumb of me to be like going into that rage just because she asked a question. Because, for me, it's like, why are you questioning me when I'm trying to do something for you? Right. So after all that, after I understand what being a servant is, I start doing things for her with no intentions of wanting something back at all. Like I used to make her coffee every single morning. Now there are some days that, when I'm kind of like not in the right mood, I'm like thinking, man, I'm making all these coffee and I don't even get a thank you. Or my kids, I'm cooking all these meals and nobody, says anything. And now it's like, that's just what God calls me to do, and this is how I serve my family. And really that maturity, it takes time. It takes time, and it takes the little things that you do every single day.
I like that, those small degrees of transformation.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one huge leap all at once.
We're gonna go deeper into this in episode 4, so you guys
Oh, hold off.
please keep
Okay.
these things
Alright.
in mind that you're
What-
talking about.
It
you're jumping
it
into.
keeps talking about, God designed marriage not for comfort, but for transformation. Do you guys feel like you have a marriage where you can challenge each other in those different aspects of life, both just in places where you're weak, and you allow your wife to actually speak into that, and then even for your own walk with Jesus, like, do you guys spend time talking about that?
How long is this episode going to be? Because 25 years, I got a lot of stories, man.
I don't think yes, but I don't think we started there. And I think that's
Sure.
when I look at this and I'm like, but I there was a definite moment when we got engaged where it was like this commitment, because I think both Katie and I, when we got into it, came from really toxic things, and we were sort of fight or flight. We were looking for like, oh, this is that again, I'm going to run. And it was like waiting on that sign. So we struggled to talk about those things where we needed to be transformed. And it really wasn't until like we stuck it out, and then we had a couple of like just like weird moments. Here, cheap pro tip: don't write your wife a letter telling her all the things you want her to fix, and then go out of town. So she
No, you did not.
I did it. Yeah.
Did you leave it on her pillow too?
No, oh,
With
no.
a little chocolate?
Even worse.
Well, that's a horrible idea.
It was the worst idea ever, and took me a while. But it was that moment that, like, you had to slow down to speed up. It took me a while to recover from it, but it opened the door to talking about.
Are you trying to
something-
justify it now?
No,
It worked
absolutely
in the
not.
end. No.
We still laugh about it today. And what's worse is I gave it to her. I like slid it in her like bag at work, and she read it at work. Oh god, yeah. I don't know how I'm married for 3 years, but that's why it's only been 3 years, not 5 or 6. So
But I relate to that because like that was not. I'll be honest. Like Christ was not the foundation for our marriage for the first half of it.
Yeah. You and
At
I
all.
have similar stories, like just coming from rough times and just being so fortunate that God's been with us the whole way and he's kept Debbie and I on the same path trajectory together and transforming us at the same time, because one of us could have went and veered off very easily and said, I'm going to keep partying.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Do you guys talk about the Bible together?
We do. I'm trying to think when this transformation started to happen, like we were able to start having those
Yeah.
conversations. Now, I'm not saying like every night
Yeah,
before
yeah.
we go to bed, that type
You
of.
pick a theological topic and
Yes, we're like, let's debate this. No, but yeah, man, I can't pinpoint it when that happened. I think it was just over time. You know what I think it probably was? It was probably not a conscious choice
Yeah.
to do that. I think it was difficulties, trials, running into problems.
Yeah.
And maybe being forced into it a little bit and
For sure.
maturing through that.
yeah, like I don't think we made like, all right, we're just gonna start doing this together. I do remember at the time when I started reading the Bible 4 years ago, and I wanted her to come along the journey because she was getting really frustrated that I was getting like excited about it because it's all I want to talk about. She's like, "Would you just shut up?"
you shared this in your testimony too.
Awesome.
Awesome.
But one thing we did do, which was cool, is Bible Project does have those videos and then they have discussion questions after them.
Mhm.
And so those were helpful to where we could start to do them together and just talk about them. Like, hey, what did you see? What did you hear? Because in reality, she probably hears something very different than what you hear.
Yep.
And so now it's been all kinds of different things. I think I told you this. Me and Brandon were having a conversation just on like spiritual gifts, and much of that was what happened at this retreat that we were at. And I was telling Katie about it, and she's like, it just made me really interested in this. And so she sent me this book, and we're going to read it together and just kind of talk through what that looks like, how that stuff like.
Yeah. What I love from that just is that it wasn't you forcing it. And I think
It
that's
probably was at first.
Yeah. But
because I wanted it to speed up.
Yeah. But it ultimately was on her time, right? Like
Mhm.
she was the one that kind of had to choose. And I think that's an important thing. Sometimes I feel like guys, and maybe I'm speaking about myself, and this is actually a statement about me asking a question to you all, is I can get down on myself. Like, I am not leading this family in the faith the way that I should be if we are doing
absolutely.
those things like that. And you realize like that may not be exactly what it's supposed to look like. So
Mhm.
has that been your all's experience
Yeah.
as far as like
I had to model it first.
leading in the faith? Yeah.
Yeah,
I had to model it
comes
for
in
my wife,
waves.
for kids, all that stuff.
Comes in waves. There'll be good, consistent weeks of praying for the girls and stuff before bed and having conversations about the Bible with Debbie, but it's not consistent.
Yeah.
I'll just be honest.
What's been really cool is to watch Katie lead in other areas, like she's constantly looking for like over the summer, she found a Bible study to do with the kids
That's cool.
over the summer. That was it was written in a way where it was kid friendly for them, but then it was also helpful for her, and it was on contentment. And so it was, her book was directed towards her, but then the kids had like draw a picture of how this, relates to you. And so that was cool to watch her take the lead and walk the kids through that kind of stuff. And then I get to come in later, and on the weekends I would join in, but it was cool for her to do that with the kids and watch her sort of lead in that aspect, which was awesome.
I think it goes back to that model the love of Christ, which is, he didn't force feed everybody with all of his knowledge, because that would have nobody could have kept up, right? He found a way to just meet you where you are, and I think sometimes that's our calling. Great conversation around this idea of transformation, and I want to go kind of a little bit deeper into this idea of covenant versus contract. And as Christians and as believers, we're called to really lean into the idea of covenant. But how do you feel like the world today has really diminished or distorted this concept of marriage as a covenant?
Well, what's the difference between covenant versus a contract?
Good question.
What's the criteria of a contract and a covenant?
A contract is a legally binding agreement between two or more parties that outline
Is that your AI search?
their rights and
Copilot,
obligations.
Copilot.
A covenant, on the other hand, is a solemn promise or commitment that may or may not be legally binding.
Yeah. And I've always viewed the presence of God and the commitment with God as part of that. That's
Covenant.
that covenant. Yeah. Like the biblical covenant always involved the God.
It's almost like contract is a transactional because there's two parties involved. There's a scope. There's a maybe money exchange, or there's a timeline. But a covenant is more relational, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the important, like, I love that, like the relational versus
the transactional.
that transactional. Because I think that's one of the questions. That's probably a great question, is where do you guys still catch yourselves maybe being more transactional in your marriages today?
Oh, gosh.
Nowhere.
That would be episode 3.
Wait, episode 3, intimacy.
Where am I being contractual in my view of my marriage versus covenantal?
But when I think contractual and covenant, I think godly view or earthly, worldly view.
Yeah, I think that's
either or.
simple.
And like social media, what are we seeing on social media and the tabloids growing up? How many times did like movie stars get divorced and remarried? Like that's what marriage was viewed as. Yeah, that's what's viewed as in the world.
Yeah,
I think there's over the years, over the past, I don't know, couple of decades, it's geared a lot more towards like me. Is this marriage serving me? And if it doesn't, then I shouldn't stay in it.
Yeah.
I would say the places that I get transactional is the things where I have just expected things to happen. So like dinner's made, clothes are washed, house is cleaned,
chores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not like, holy crap, this may have taken you a lot of time. Thank you. Like, that's amazing. Thank you for doing this. And it feels really dumb to do that every night, every meal. But like, I think it goes a long way, and something I'm terrible at, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Of just reminding me that she spent the time to make us dinner, not just for me, but for the whole family.
Or nights like this, putting the kids to bed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. Like, hey, you had to put all the kids to bed. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Or when she goes out of her way to go do stuff or run an errand because I can't, because I have meetings during the day for work or something. Like it almost feels like there becomes some sort of entitlement a bit.
Yeah.
Rather than thanking her and being appreciative for all that stuff.
Yeah. I know that there's scripture about, not being unequally yoked as far as your faith, but I don't recall seeing anything as far as Jesus being like, till death do you part, and if the chores are equally split.
No, I don't. I can't.
But
if we look at Ephesians, it feels like I should be doing all of them,
right?
Quite honestly.
But I think like I am so guilty of that, of just being like sometimes this mindset of the tallies of
oh gosh,
dishes,
yes,
100%. That laundry, put that away. Bathe that
or
dog.
I got up at this time with a kid for the last 3 nights. Why aren't you doing that?
Yeah,
like,
never ever keep scores.
Yeah, that's a dangerous place.
Very dangerous.
I know
that's a losing.
I'm still there.
Lose situation.
Yeah. So was that like what milestone should I expect that to just stop, guys? Is that like year 7? I look forward to that.
Like
or
year,
Well, I'm,
year,
I'm about
one.
to be at year
Yeah.
11. I'm still keeping score in some areas. So
I think as the kids get older, that at least for me got easier because there was less of that needing to split
now
things
it's
up.
keeping scores you against the kids. Got it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes,
You guys need to do more stuff around here.
we won't get into kids issues, but
That's,
yeah, I
that's
was facing
another
some of that.
that's
Oh,
another episode for parenting.
I started charging my son for not doing the garbage because I'm sick of it. But anyways,
And I do think this goes back to like how we started, which is it's important to not keep score. It's also important to make sure that, if you feel like there's an unbalance, that you're having that conversation so that it doesn't become something that's unhealthy and you're just a doormat, one way or the other. So,
yeah.
You mentioned about going to the basics, right? I think every Christian wedding, besides talking about Corinthians, that passage about love, I think we all need to have some kind of symbol made. I don't know if you guys seen the triangle with God on the top, and then husband, wife, or men, women. And then as you grow, as the man grows closer to God and the women goes closer to God, then that relationship between man and wife becomes, it comes
Gets
closer and closer to the point where when you're there, you're pretty much,
You become God.
you become one.
Just kidding. I'm sorry.
No, you would never be God. You become one. And I think for me, that illustration was really my transformation to understand, I don't need to know her. I need to know God more, because the more I know Jesus, the more I know what Jesus is about, which is love, God's love. And that helps me to know how to love my wife, how to love my kids, how to love people.
yeah.
I like that. And it ties back into the, keeping score thing, because that's us wanting them to change or trying to change them. But what you were just talking about, it's like as you pursue Jesus, you're being changed.
Transforming. Yeah.
Yeah. If your wife is doing that as well, you're both being changed, and in that you grow together. That's a good illustration. Sorry, I rudely interrupted you with that
No, that's
snide remark.
That's why people do the unity candle
Yeah.
or the sand,
Yeah.
Well, the reality
the
is
rocks.
the character, nature, and image of God is only fully displayed in a marriage. It's not individually.
Mm-hmm.
She's just as much an image bearer as you are.
Yeah.
She has different skills, abilities, and uniqueness that you don't, which means that God made women in a different way. So by loving and serving your wife, you get the opportunity to understand more about who God is, because they have a different part that was put into them as an image bearer that we don't have.
Yeah, it seems like as men, we'd all do well to just constantly find a way to remind ourselves that you didn't just make this vows with her.
Yeah.
You made that with God
God,
too.
yeah.
And that's hopefully it's not.
Gives a little
that
more
different.
weight to
yeah,
it, yeah.
There's some weight to that. But we do, to your point, Brandon, it's like when we start to focus on, we get to that point where we focus on what's wrong. It's we go inward and we think about how you're being done an injustice in this relationship. And then we forget about that whole idea of covenantal thinking, which I thought was really important to just bring up in this first episode, that marriage is not just this contract. It's not just an agreement between you and her. It's a three-way deal, to Mike's point. It's a triangle. And you've made that agreement with him that you will be here till death do you part, unless there's one of those legitimate things that comes up that, you shouldn't be in it. And so I think that's a really interesting one. And we've been talking about, Billy, your statement about just women were made to be co-image bearers. It made me think of another quote from an author, Matthew Henry, and he says, "The woman was made of a rib out of the side of Adam, not made out of his head to rule over him, and not made out of his feet to be trampled by him, but out of his side to be equal with him, under his arm to be protected, and near his heart to be loved." And so we talk about this idea of Christ-like love, and I just love to just start to maybe close this episode, but ask you all, how can we better, in your opinion, mirror Christ's sacrificial love daily in your marriage? What could that look like?
Offer as much grace and mercy
Mm-hmm.
as
As you expect
humanly
to receive.
possible,
Yeah.
right? As you expect to receive. I mean,
For me, I'm always reminded of you mentioned Gary Thomas at the very beginning, that sacred marriage. There's one video that he mentioned that, you know, we are all God, made in God's image, right?
Mhm.
So your wife is also God's daughter, God's image. How do you please God if you don't treat your wife well? It's kind of like if you treat someone's kids, you know, really good, guess what? That parent's going to love you,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't treat your wife really, really, really good, how are you going to please God?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I always remember by, you know, that line, that video when we were doing that sacred marriage study.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't done it, I highly recommend it.
Worth it. Maybe we'll see if we can drop that in the show notes.
One thing we didn't do here, and I know it's the end of the episode, so if I drop a bomb, I'm sorry. There's been a distortion of what love means.
Yeah.
So when I look at that, I go sacrificial love. Absolutely. Like, one starts with me. I got to serve like heck,
Mm-hmm.
radically. And God's been challenging me that a lot lately. The other piece is, though, it's not an affirmation of however she wants to live. There has to be, back to what we talked about earlier, like there has to be a level of being able to speak into the places that are not healthy.
Yeah.
And that has to be a confirmation or a conversation where you both agree, like, hey, look, you have permission to speak into that for me, and I want to make sure that I have the same permission back to you.
So sometimes that can mean that sacrifice can be
Yeah.
sacrificing comfort.
Yeah, exactly.
And, yeah.
And then you being open to when that feedback comes back. 'Cause
Yeah.
most of the time we want that really bad.
Yeah.
And then when it hits us, we're like, whoa, hold on.
Yeah.
But love in our culture today feels like it's just, please just affirm me.
Mm-hmm.
Please just affirm me. Please just affirm me.
Yeah.
And that can be a really dangerous place to be if it's just straight affirmation. Like, there's got to be some sort of way, back to the very first thing we talked about, like there's got to be some way in which you guys have an understanding and intimacy to where you can challenge each other.
Yeah. Love that.
and I personally don't think you have the intimacy without having a personal relationship with God first.
Mm-hmm.
That's really hard. I don't know if I could experience it without God in my life.
That's awesome.
Being vulnerable is tough as men already.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have God with you to be vulnerable, it's so much easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you've experienced that firsthand.
Yeah.
After hearing your testimony, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you also, I think, in what Billy's talking about, which is absolutely true, you also, I think, need God to help have the discernment on that.
Yeah.
You know, again, is it something I'm wanting to change or control, or is it really something that's harming them?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I have to ask myself, who is this prayer and service to?
Yeah.
Her or me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
What am I really praying for?
And a plug
Yeah.
for community here, since that's what we're all about. It also helps to have other men in our lives that we can go to and say, like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you pray with me? What insight do you have? You know,
Or,
Is
hey,
this a me
knock
thing
it off.
or something I should address?
yeah.
Yeah.
Quit nagging your wife so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Lots and lots to unpack here. But as we zoom out, unless there's anything that you guys feel like would be failing if we didn't share as part of how we can mirror sacrificial love. What I wanted to hopefully do is just really set the stage for the next 3 episodes, which is just a reminder that this relationship, this marriage, this idea of till death do us part is more than just a simple phrase. It's more, yes, it's a vow, but it's a covenant. It is a solemn promise that you've made with God, not just this person that you've chosen to spend the rest of your life with. And how we do that, what does that look like, and how we serve is just really countercultural. How Christ has asked us to serve and look than we see today, and we're going to really unpack some of that, starting with the words that we use and the communication styles that we offer in our marriages in episode 2. but wanted to just really start and say, this should be something that's transformational, this relationship for you, not just something where you get to coast, and when it's hard, you get to bolt. So
I think go back
ahead.
to just like super practical, easy step. Like pray with and for your wife every night.
love it.
Like
Yeah.
start there.
Yeah. I notice when I am off of and I'm feeling really selfish, is because my prayers for other people have stopped. I'm good on getting gratitude of what you get of me. I'm apologizing.
Yeah.
But I'll drop sometimes those things. I love that. Pray with and for your wife. All right. Well, thank you all for jumping in. I hope you're excited to kind of follow along this journey with us on our remaining episodes. We appreciate you taking time to join, and have a good day, and we'll catch you on the next one.